Hello and welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast, and this is episode 30.
Hello!
Whoop. How we doing, lads?
Not bad.
We are doing
shattered,
awesome.
But
Yeah, absolutely shattered. We've completed the move into the new headquarters.
yes.
Well, I say completed, but
Aye.
there's shit everywhere.
Aye. A lot of listeners want to hear about us moving house.
But we are surrounded by piles of board games at the moment.
Yeah, it's very thematic.
It looks glorious.
It's pretty good, actually.
It pleases my eyes.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to probably get rid of some of them just because we've no space. So it's a sad day. It's a sad day.
Some of them are rubbish as
But
well.
what I'll do is I'll get rid of the shit ones. That's what I'll do.
Exactly.
See?
Aye.
Always thinking.
So watch out.
That's why you offered them to me then.
Yeah, that's Pawel. You can have any of the shit ones. You can help
okay.
yourself, man.
Okay.
Watch out for those flooding the market soon.
Tell you what, they do look alright, to be fair.
Right, so despite the move, we somehow managed to fit some gaming in.
Yes,
We did.
we did. Well, I mean, it was a couple of. It feels like an age ago.
Oh god, it feels like ages ago that we actually released an episode.
Aye.
But I mean, another house, another time, another life.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Time and space.
We're getting
One of the board games
nostalgic
you're getting
now.
rid of.
Yeah. Despite us giving it a pretty decent review.
I know you're actually just looking at this pile now. You're chucking 2 games that we've actually reviewed on this podcast and given fairly positive.
Yeah, I know, but it's just
it's done now.
I've got better ones. Is the thing.
It's fair enough.
I've got better ones. So yes, time and space. If anybody wants it, just shoot me an email.
Aye. Podcast is now dealing with giving out board games.
This is now a car boot sale.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've been back to our old ways.
We did go back to the old ways. We continue the tradition when we move into a new place of just playing Shenmue.
Aye, there's no internet. Get the Dreamcast out, lob it out the window, pick it back up again, drop it off various things while playing it.
It's the king of all games, Shenmue. You can't go wrong playing Shenmue.
Indeed, and it's quite a saga. We're out now on disc 3.
Disc 3 of the first game.
We're driving about forklift trucks. It's
yeah.
a lot of fun. So yeah,
I think fun. That's I don't know if that's the word to describe it.
I was quite enjoying it.
Aye, you were getting well into the crates.
I was like moving those crates.
Yeah.
Carrying crates was fun.
Well, forklifting crates, moving crates via forklift. I'm not entirely sure. See, you've shown me the Shenmue 2 work, and I'm a wee bit. I feel like I might be disappointed.
Yeah, but compared to the Shenmue 2 work, the forklift truck thing is much more fun.
Typical Japanese imperialism. Oh, the Chinese don't have they don't have forklifts. They just move everything around by hand.
Shenmue 1 is all in English, yes? Because Shenmue 2 is actually in Japanese.
Yeah,
you can play it in Japanese.
You can play it in
so
English.
So in Shenmue 2, when you move crates, they actually say it in Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
Chi,
And it's hilarious.
Migi,
Aye.
Migi.
Well, no, because that's not what the guy sounds like. The guy goes, Miga.
But in Shenmue 1, it's all in English, yeah? So they say something like left and right and stuff like that, yeah? Okay.
And in fact, some of the voiceover work that's been done on it is hilarious. Because clearly the people have just been given the lines for this, like, without any context whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is what happened quite often in the video game world.
Everything's completely tonally off, and the way they sort of phrase things.
Beauty of Shenmue.
I'm not slighting it at all. We've got some great lines out of them. I made a security guard afraid.
Yeah. I mean, this security guard was clearly about to say, "I'm afraid you can't do that," or something like that, but instead he went, "I'm afraid!"
And then the voice actor read the rest of the line.
Yeah.
Went, "Oh,
I'm afraid! You can't be here, sir."
Oh, excellent.
Right, so that was, well, we're going to go into we kind of started the video game section there, but yeah. We're gonna go into some video game chat there. That was just an update in our Shenmue thing that we like to give you every 3 months when we decide to actually play it.
I'll be coming back. Don't worry.
3 months from now, look forward to another Shenmue update.
So how many actual flat moves until you guys get to China? In Shenmue.
Oh no, not in real.
Sorry, not China, Hong Kong. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry,
I'm glad you clarified in Shenmue there, because
that was honestly a
we're
big
not
mistake.
moving flats like going further east. Like we're not trying to reach China every time we move a flat.
Because you'd have to go through Poland.
Well, currently we've
You
been
said
heading,
it, man, not me.
We've been heading west so far, so it's we've gotten that completely wrong.
Yeah,
We're just going to end up in the Atlantic.
We're really bad at moving to China. We're terrible at it. Right, let's get into some video game chat.
Why not?
Pavel, we're going to reluctantly let you talk first. So
this is always a good choice.
You've been playing more. Is it Cyberpunk stuff?
Yes, I mean, because obviously, like, this is the only thing worth doing ever. Cyberpunk is the thing to do, and there isn't that.
You say that about RPGs,
of course, yes, but especially Cyberpunk RPGs, obviously.
right?
There isn't that many Cyberpunk franchises out there anyway, so it's not like you have a lot of choice, and it's always nice to discover a new thing. Now, Dex is not a new thing. It's been around for 2 years. Released by Dreadlocks Ltd, I believe.
Yep.
They are quite limited, it seems. They're actually from the Czech Republic. It was a Kickstarter game, released on Steam initially, or PC, let's say. And quite recently on consoles as well. Plenty of consoles, I believe. Some of them still to come. Following the early release, which I've not taken part in because I only grabbed the game like 2 days ago. There's been several additions and facelifts to this game, and it is now available in an enhanced version. I can't really say how enhanced is it because I've just picked it up. But what I do want to say is I didn't expect what I got. I must say I'm actually very much impressed. Dex is one of those games with, I'm going to say, sort of retro graphics where your avatar, your character, whoever you're moving around, the Cyberpunk, whatever girl with blue hair named Dex, is just maybe 100 pixels, maybe less. And something in my head, and I suppose many gamers' heads, tends to judge such games as games of lesser quality, because obviously AAA games will have, 300 devs working on a single polygon. I'm really pleasantly surprised by Dex. It's a side-scroller, sort of action stealth / RPG thing. It's rather difficult to describe. It's got plenty of sort of traditional-looking side-scrolling brawling stuff where you have various fairly weak enemies or stronger enemies walking at you, and you have to just clobber them with your fists and stuff. It's got some platforming elements when you're sneaking through toxic factories and there is acid dripping and acid, I should say, whatever.
Acid's fine.
I see you gentlemen are familiar with this.
We'll accept acid.
Okay.
Unless it's written 8 CID.
Yeah, in some sort of cyberpunk style.
Yeah.
So
we would go for that.
Yeah, thank you.
A good point, well made, Euan.
Mm-hmm.
Dex is at the beginning may feel very basic. Your character just punches, does nothing else. Enemies feel very sort of generic. There isn't anything that you wouldn't expect from a side-scrolling brawler game happening. But you soon realize that as you progress through the game and improve your character with augmentations, various skills, get weapons, it becomes fairly complex and actually immediately difficult as far as your dexterity is involved. There is hacking or whatever cyberspace element to it, which I've only scratched so far, and it already feels like a completely different minigame, which I suppose should be called a bullet hell with, again, its own elements. There's a lot of different things mashed in this game, but they seem to work. But on top of it, which is what I find particularly interesting, it's actually genuine cyberpunk feel and story, which is what's really important. Obviously, it does have this mixture of noir and whatever high-tech dystopia that you look for in a cyberpunk game. There is plenty of character archetypes, I suppose, that feel like they've been taken out of various staples, like whatever Blade Runner or Johnny Mnemonic or you name it. So it all feels really good. I've only begun playing it, but I'm looking forward to dig into it right after the podcast. Yes,
as usual.
Are we holding you back again, man?
Not at all. No. But I should mention soundtrack again. Well done, full voice work, which again you don't expect from a game with graphics that really at some point, I'm gonna say, avatars walking around look really like in the 90s. Whereas
are they sort of actually pixelated avatars, or are they more sort of updated that? Because there's plenty of games recently have used sort of side-scrolling, but have updated the graphics, kept used sort of 3D models and things like that, and tried to.
There's no 3D models as such.
Okay,
it's
right.
pixels.
I'm now having a look. It is quite pixelated, but look, it does look quite detailed though.
The environments look really all right, and even if the characters don't impress with the movements, there's intricacy to what you can do, to all the options you're given. So if you feel like playing it, don't get discouraged, because I initially got it a good couple months ago, had a quick look at it and thought this looks like an indie attempt that is clearly just a whatever cheap side scrolling thing, and I didn't dig into it, and it was a mistake. It's actually there's depth to this game, and I'm gonna see how deep it goes.
Is it so far as it could be a kind of just a full sort of single player story thing? Like, are you just working through a level progression, or are you doing different
missions? You're being obviously chased by megacorps. There's whatever AI interested in introducing you to the cyberspace because you're chosen whatsoever. I'm not going to spoil too much, but it's all about story. It's all about it's definitely just single player. Some of the voice work is really good. Some of the voice work is rather bad to the point that it's funny. So you can feel that, because I don't think Dreadlocks is a big company as such. But what they've done with the game is fairly impressive, given what I imagine as limited resources. But there's been games like this recently. I find myself discovering or rediscovering, I suppose, small games that end up being my favorites over majority of AAA games nowadays. Like if you take Transistor or Banner Saga or Shadowrun Dragonfall, I would take those games over, I suppose, any console games I played this year or previous year probably as well. They're really, really good. I can't say Dex is probably not this level, but it seems to be really good.
I found Transistor a little bit frustrating, to be honest. I played a fair whack of it, and I was kind of just like, I don't know. I didn't really get into it.
I think because Transistor is experience rather than a game itself. It's got decent gaming.
Yeah, because I think I was kind of waiting for gameplay elements to kick in that just never really did.
It's a short game, but you really fully discover what the game is about, and its full feel once you've completed it.
Okay.
Which is, I suppose, the same with Inside, another
it
amazing.
definitely had it seemed like it had an intriguing story.
Yeah.
Are there puzzly elements to this game?
In Dex.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it was making me I had a quick look at the sort of screenshots there, and it was making me think of something like Another World or whatever it was in the Mega Drive.
Yeah. This is a good association actually, because your character has various skills in lockpicking, included and stuff like this. You're gonna get to a room and find, I don't know, a diagram how to shut down a power generator, which I've not found just yet. But once you've picked up this diagram, you go to your inventory and you can actually see a drawing that shows you, I don't know, actually a fairly complicated way of, I suppose, fiddling with dials. So at some point, I'm guessing I'll be able to find it potentially and play around with it. It's a side scroller, but you have inventory. You pick up cash. You drink whatever energo beer to heal up and stuff like this. It's got all the trappings of an RPG, but it is a 2D brawler. So it's weird, but it works.
Cool.
Okay.
So yeah, well done, Dreadlocks. I'm looking forward to play it some more.
Well done, Dreadlock.
The Pawel seal of approval.
It's
what all developers really go for when they're making games now.
Yes,
if you're making a cyberpunk RPG, they should be aiming for the Pawel seal of approval.
It's working its way into the mainstream.
It's going to be showing up on.
Let's be honest. If anybody makes a cyberpunk RPG, it could be shit. Pawel will still like it.
I'm gonna like it because it's cyberpunk. Clearly, once CD Projekt make their Cyberpunk 2077, I will spend 3 episodes of our podcast talking about this and only this.
Okay, well, as long as they put a platinum Pawel's head on the box, all's well.
I will demand it.
God, that'd be terrifying. If that's how all games came now.
only cyberpunk and RPG games.
Yeah, that's fine. I can live with that. That's me, thank you very much.
Okay.
Dex.
Right, so that's Dex, and that was by Dreadlock, did you say?
Dreadlocks, yeah.
Dreadlocks
LTD.
Limited?
Let's see.
Yeah, and that came out, the early access was in 2014.
Yeah.
The full release was 2015 on Steam, but then it came out in consoles earlier this year. It's Xbox One and PS4, I think, only.
And as I was saying earlier before I started the show, I have seen second-hand copies of this floating about in some in some game stores. So I don't know, maybe it hasn't quite captured the imagination of the physical copy buyer.
We probably know that physical copy buyer.
I think we may do.
Right.
Well,
so let's move on a wee bit. So we're only going to talk about one more video game. And I actually should have mentioned this earlier, but our board game section is going to be given over to one game only, but it's going to be a long chat about that.
We did hype it in the previous episode, so I think people are
if you're
rubbing their hands together.
If you're only listening for the video game section, then this is going to be the last one. Sorry.
Savour it.
We are kind of anticipating the length of chat we're going to have about this board game. So, right, so I want to talk about Heart World, which is another survival game. Because you know me, every time I bring up a survival game, I say, you know me in survival games.
Because Chris was brought up in Preston Pants, and obviously he's just got it in his blood.
He saw his first pickaxe when he was 3.
Yeah, that's right. I had to go and mine some coal for the fire.
to get your drill going.
Now this game, right, this is a survival game which, as I was saying to you earlier, right, so you've got survival games that are like Don't Starve, where the emphasis is really on survival, which is really on just like making sure you have food, making sure you don't get killed by the animals that are in the game and stuff like that.
You feel really up against
warm, yeah, all that kind of thing. But then you've got games like Heart World, where the survival aspect of it is really just stay away from all the other players who all seem to be bastards. Like, it's just, they're just, I've never experienced an online survival game like this where everybody seems to be out for your blood, and I don't know, like, I would like to say that there's something in the air, but you know, it's an online game, so how can you say that? It just feels like this game has just attracted people that are just used to playing things like Counter-Strike and stuff like that.
Oh goodness!
It's just that level of thing. So you start this game as like a naked man on a beat, or well, on the edge of a desert, I think is more accurate. I feel like there should be a sea behind you, but there isn't. Now, you're a naked man. The graphics are all kind of like, they're slightly cartoony again, you know, that's not like, they're not hardcore graphics or anything like that, and you can run around, you can pick up bits of wood, you can pick up bits of stone, which they might actually just be stone, it might be flint, it might be that kind of thing, and then eventually you can make yourself a little hatchet, go and chop some logs up, get some more wood, you know, and you build from there. And you, I suppose the goal was really to get a base built, is the sort of thing that's the sort of thing you want to aim for. You can build shacks. I don't think you could originally. The game's still in alpha, I believe.
All right.
Now, I think I've seen other people playing it, and I think before you couldn't build shacks, but basically shack is just a temporary thing that will last for 2 days real time.
All right.
And you can sort of sit inside that. It's just not safe though. It's one little square room, but you've got enough space to set up a workbench, to put in a storage chest, to maybe put a fire pit in. But like, one of the things that people like to do in this game is if they hear you clanking about in your little shed, then they'll come and stand outside the door and just stand there perfectly still,
Oh my God.
perfectly quiet, and you don't know that they're there because they've kind of snuck up on you. So you go and open the door of your shack, they'll shoot you in the face with a bow, and then nick all your shit. So it's so brutal, this game. Like, it's so unforgiving.
When you die in this, you're just back to square one, and there's no.
If you die, you go back to either the spawn point at the beginning of the game, or you will respawn in your shack. If you've got one, you'll respawn in your shack.
Okay.
Or if you've set up a base, and you can set up a spawn point inside there.
Right.
You will respawn there
Like
instead.
a bed in Minecraft or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically like that. But I mean, the game's just so. I mean, it does feel like it was going towards everybody should be just attacking each other, because the way that spawn points work in this, once you actually get a proper base set up, so getting the resources together to build a base can take a little while. If you don't know what you're doing, it's going to take ages.
Yeah.
But basically, you have to get loads of stone and limestone and clay and stuff like that, and to like make a concrete base, like an actual base level, before you can start making walls and stuff like that. And then you have to stick a land claim down. Otherwise, like, people can use the doors. So you have to stick a land claim down, but that becomes your spawn point. But if anybody gets to your land claim, they can add their name to that and set it as their spawn point, which creates horrific problems if somebody gets in your base. Because if they get in there, set it as their spawn point, you kill them, they respawn there again.
And they'll just keep on.
And they'll just keep doing it. And what people tend to do is they set that thing to their spawn point and destroy the land claim. Like, they'll just stand and hack away at it while you're constantly killing them, they're respawning, they're just going to keep chopping away at your land claim until it disappears, then they'll kill you.
Oh.
And then you will go back to the beginning because your spawn point's gone, and while they're running about in your base stealing all your stuff. It's so brutal. Like, it's such a brutal game, and it's brutal in more aspects than that. It's so easy to starve to death.
Yeah.
It's so easy to freeze to death. If you've got a little shack and you've got a fire pit going inside it, it's so easy to get heat stroke and die of that if you've got this thing burning away, because you need to set up a fire pit if you want to, like, cook your food, and if you want to make iron bars so that you can actually make better stuff.
Are you expected to ventilate the room or something?
No, there's just no way around it. You just have to get away from the fire pit, which means that if you've got a little shack going and you really, really, really need to cook some food, you might want to go and stand outside for a while, put yourself in the firing line so people can see you.
That sounds like my way of cooking.
Oh man, I've never experienced a survival game like this where
Are
it's
you
just
enjoying it?
where people are the real monsters.
That's people are the monsters.
It's humans that are the scum of the earth.
Are you having fun though?
Do you know what? Surprisingly, it's addictive as hell. And one of the things is that it's not I'm saying everybody's a bastard, and not everybody. Okay, we had a nice little thing going. All right,
Glimmers of hope.
I saw a guy who was standing using a workbench which is sitting outside, and I approached them, and I've got the voice chat on, and I just said, and I was kind of wary. I had my bow drawn while I was walking up towards him, and I was just like, if this guy turns around, he's fucking getting it. But I walked up and I was just like, right, voice chat, hello, how you doing? And it turned out he was just a friendly guy. He just started the game, he didn't know what was going on. So me and him were running about together. We started setting up a base, and then someone got inside and took it off us, and so we went back and we had this really depressing moment, me and this Estonian guy, where we were just back to square one. We had nothing. But then eventually we went away somewhere else. There was somebody had built a big base, and they were standing on the roof. They heard us talking to each other, and he started talking to us. He heard us saying that we needed some stone. He threw a load of stone at us. We're like, oh, cool, friendly people, cool. So we went off and he was like, yeah, I'll show you where you can set up a base. And we set up a base around the corner. It turned out, so this is a German guy and a Lithuanian guy who were just friendly and were moaning about the fact that everybody kept killing them. So we just set up this European alliance. So like, just alliance against the baddies. So just a Lithuanian, a German, an Estonian, and this Scotsman here were just running about. Like, whenever anybody was getting raided, we were going after them. Like, just
trying to enforce a bit.
We were the superheroes of this world for a while.
Just trying to civilise the place.
We were.
Like that.
Yeah.
So we were the peacekeepers. We were the peacekeepers by violently killing everybody.
Ray Winston Ray Winston in the what's that film? The Proposition.
Yeah.
So there's no mobs as such in this game.
There are. Place. Oh yeah, that's another thing. It's quite easy, especially early in the game, to just be killed by the animals. I mean, there's the map that we were playing on is Demon's Land, but it's spelled DIE.
No, why?
Just for fun. But at the beginning area, it's all just like rabbits and deer, and the deer will attack you. The rabbits just run away. But the deer, I mean, as long as you hit them in the face a couple of times, they'll die, and you can take their leather and their meat and stuff like that. But if you go further into the map, there's boars. They're pretty brutal if you don't like really get rid of them and you've not got proper clothing on. You go further in, there are like weird raptor-looking things that spit acid at you. You go further in, there's Sasquatches. It just gets more and more brutal as you go into the map, and also the further into the map you go, the colder it seems to get. So you need to make warmer clothing and stuff like that. So there's a sort of like there's like a stage process thing that you're going through as you're getting in.
That's cool.
But weirdly, I am enjoying the game. There is something like you feel. I've been feeling like every time somebody's killed me, I'm just more determined to just build a better base or defend myself better. Like learn to shoot that fucking bow better.
Aye.
That kind of thing.
Well, there's not really. I mean, I can't really think of any like PvP survival games.
There are a few going about because there's stuff like what's the zombie one? Why is the name of that just completely escaped me?
7 Days to Die?
No, not 7 Days to Die, but you can play that multiplayer PvP.
Okay.
The DayZ, like
DayZ's
like that.
Yeah.
But
but I mean, like normally in a survival game or something, when you do end up dying or going back to square one, it's usually your own fault, and you kind of end up getting a bit you're either just despondent or exasperated.
That's when you rage quit.
Yeah,
aye.
But when there's when there's like,
other people, you're just like, oh, I'll get you. I'll get you.
Because no one's interested in getting one over on a computer, but other people.
Because like I say, humans, they're truly evil people.
True, the real monsters.
The real monsters, yeah. I got my friend Craig playing it as well. And there was quite an amusing moment where, like, I had got my phone out and turned on the voice chat permanently, basically, and started playing You're the Voice by John Farnham as I was running around the map. Just to confuse people. Now, Craig stood on the top of a hill and let me run away to do it, and he says you could hear it from miles away.
Did you attract any ne'er-do-wells?
I think people were just probably confused.
Fair
where
enough.
the hell's the music coming from? This game's bad enough without this.
Oh my god.
But yeah, Heartworld, it's you can pick it up on Steam, so it's Steam only. It's like I say, it's still an alpha, but there's definitely a playable game there.
Yeah.
It's got plenty of content to keep you interested. I'm hoping they'll add more content because I get the feeling that like obviously there's a crafting thing going on in it, and it feels kind of limited in what you can actually make.
Yeah.
You can make like stone pickaxes and iron pickaxes and then titanium pickaxes, and there's that kind of progression there. But everything else, it doesn't seem like there's much progression other than in the tools and the weapons.
Right.
So I don't know what they're actually planning on doing with it, what they're actually planning on adding. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm hoping that they do sort of expand a bit and get a bit more sort of like choice there, a bit more creativity sort of thing. So it's not just everybody's got the same stone base with a couple of doors in it.
Right. Well, maybe they just want to keep it the weapons and rudimentary shelter, and that'll do.
Well, maybe because maybe that's the real struggle.
Aye, that's proper survival.
Yep. So that's Heartworld, and that is by Bankroll Studios, I believe. Yes, Bankroll Studios, and you can pick that up on Steam.
Cool.
Right. So that's I think that's the end of the video game section.
Are we ready for the board gaming section?
I think we're gonna. I might go and actually have to have a cup of tea before we start this because I'm gonna have to clear my mind a bit. Get all the Heartworld rage out of my system.
We can do it.
So yeah, we'll have a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Twilight Imperium 3. If you're not interested in listening to us talk for possibly an hour about a really epic space game, epic game, then this is the time to stop listening. If not, we'll see you in a minute. And we're back.
Indeed.
Hello.
We hope you enjoyed listening to John Farnham there.
A little bit, something a bit different. For the
Well, we
break.
mentioned it, so we thought we'd throw it in.
Is that what we're gonna edit in?
Oh yeah, I'm putting that.
Brilliant.
Aye.
Okay.
Seamlessly.
Seamlessly put it in. Pavel's completely unaware of the conversation we
it's
just
fine.
had.
He's broke the illusion.
Yes.
It's okay.
Right, so let's do our board game section, which will consist of one board game.
Yes.
And it's one hell of a board game.
It's a big one.
So, despite the fact that we had to move and we did all that moving stuff, we still managed to set aside an entire day to play Twilight Imperium 3rd edition.
Yeah.
And you do need an entire day for this. Like, we had 6 players, I think it was.
It was.
6 players, and we started, I think, setting up and stuff at 10:30. We didn't finish the game until, what time was it? About half...
I was past 9.
It was after
half
9.
9,
Yeah.
yeah. So... But the first 2 hours of that were really just like setting the game up and explaining how everything worked and answering questions about the rules and stuff like that, and everybody making tea and all that kind of thing. So
General faffing about.
yeah, lots of faffing.
There was a short, chippy break as well, yeah?
Yeah, there was a short chippy break, yeah, so we stopped for some food. But yeah, it took
You're
probably
talking
about
playtime about 8 hours.
about 8 hours to play that 6-player
Because
game of Twilight Imperium.
without the break, I don't think we'd actually be able to continue.
Nah.
I think we may have just died of starvation right there and then.
Yeah, I had a thumping sore head at that point.
Yeah, me too. Actually.
We definitely needed to eat. Okay, so for those of you who aren't aware of what Twilight
You need
Imperium is,
endurance.
yes, you need endurance. It is a massive space game, and it's what I would call thick. It's just a thick game. It's heavy.
It's not the way I'd have thought about it, but yeah, I can see that.
It's like reading a thick book.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. It takes effort. But the thing is that the actual basic rules of the game aren't really that difficult.
No.
They're no more difficult than any other game. It's just that everything that comes with that all the exceptions, all the sort of little things that you have to do, they just take up all the time, sort of thing. But it's fun. Mm-hmm. Don't get us wrong, it's fun. Yeah. Now, we're not going to like go into too heavy a rules explanation about this, because, like I say, even though the basic rules are quite simple, we'd end up getting into all the little details and all that sort of thing. Yeah. But essentially, everybody plays... You've got a bunch of races in this game. And everybody gets to pick between 2 of them, I think, is the way that we did it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can choose your own way, really.
Yeah, choose your own way picking races. But, yep, we just dealt out 2 races each, and everybody picked 1. And every race has got its own little power. It might have some sort of weakness as well, but generally they've all got their own little flavour to them. So you might have like races that can start with the biggest ships in the game, which nobody else can get, and you get other things like you might just get bonuses when you're attacking and stuff like that. But yeah, they've all got their own little flavour, and you then like you have to set the board up, which is just like basically every race starts with a different amount of ships and all that sort of thing. You start with different amounts of planets, but you're all just on your one little home sector basically, and setting up the board takes quite a while.
There's a lot of effort into that.
It's like you have to like it's all just hexagons of space, and I don't know. There's a central planet called Mechatol Rex, which generally becomes a focal point for everybody to fight over. But then there's like 3 rings of space outside of that, basically. So 3 rings of hexes.
Yeah. So you end up with a big sort of hexagonal.
Yeah, big hexagonal sort of board.
Yeah.
But yeah. The basics of the game is really like you're playing for points.
Yeah.
So you're playing towards a certain amount of victory points. It can be 10 or 14 depending on how long you want to make the game. We played to 10, and it's still
good luck trying to play to 14.
Yeah, man, that's for the true heavy board
For people
gamers.
who I think if you knew that game and you'd sat down determined to play it with a bunch of people who knew the game, I think you could play a 14-point game.
I remember us sort of thinking that maybe we could try to play to 14th at about 10 a.m. and then about 9 o'clock everybody was like, oh my god, there's another 1 round to go.
But I think everybody came out well versed in how it worked, and if you took the same set of players, you could sit them down again and
it would be faster,
you'd get into a lot
smoother,
quicker.
yes.
It's like anything like that, but
I don't think most of them would actually want to repeat that this year.
Oh yeah, I'm genuinely. It feels like one of those games I would like to, maybe not so regularly, but every couple of months, if you had a good crew of folk that wanted to play it.
I'd love to replay it. This is a game up my
I mean, if we were to play a 10-point game again, it wouldn't take anywhere near as long as it took, because for a lot of people it was new to them.
Yeah.
We have played it before, with 3 of us sitting here, haven't we? You and did you?
I don't think I played it with.
But you and I have played it before, Pawel.
Yes.
We played it. You played it at your flat actually, a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those games that only does get played every few years. But you're right. If we were to play it again this weekend with the same people, we would probably batter through it a lot quicker. It's just that there's just a lot to take in.
Now, if you're listening to us, we're actually not planning to drag you to death. You can just rest, be calm.
Well, make us an offer. I'm willing to listen to any offers.
I think Gav may have mentioned something about playing it again in 2019.
Oh yeah, possibly.
Yeah,
that's a date. So yeah, anyway, you're playing for points.
Yeah.
There's
the points have it's not like a lot of games where you just pick up victory points. There's specific goals, and they'll be different from each game, because you have sort of objective cards that you draw at the start of the game.
One of the many set-up things that you do. And there's different ways of doing that as well, because we played with one of the optional variants, which is similar to the earlier editions of Twilight Imperium, apparently, where you basically laid all the cards out face up so that everybody could see what cards were available. Because what you do in 3rd edition basic normal rules is that the cards come out one a turn, I think it is. So, or it's every time somebody does a certain thing or something. I can't remember exactly how it works. But, so there's not all the goals laid out there for you to aim towards. There's just like one goal at a time, so that kind of comes out, so that everybody might be going for the same thing. Also, everybody gets secret objectives. So everybody gets a secret card, which they have to keep hidden, obviously, and only they can go for that thing.
And all of them are really, really hard for some reason.
Some of them are hard. Some of them are harder than others. Mine was made virtually impossible in the first turn of the game, but we'll get to that.
You're welcome.
But yeah, so you've got goal cards that you can aim for to get points, and they might say things like you take Mechatol Rex, which is in the centre. That's quite a big thing in this game, is that Mechatol Rex is supposed to be the sort of Galactic Council's headquarters or whatever.
Seat of Empire.
It's the seat, and it's and basically if you control Mechatol Rex, you'll get points for that. Now the interesting thing is that you get the point for that. If you lose control of Mechatol Rex, you don't lose the point. You keep the point. So you can take Mechatol Rex and then do what I did and bugger off in the next turn to stop from having your fleet wiped out.
Few of us did that.
I think there was a sort of relay run for Mechatol Rex, and during the course of the game, pretty much at least half the players visited Mechatol Rex, scored their points, and then just moved on, vacated it.
But there was a few fights over Mechatol Rex when people hadn't moved out in time and stuff like that. So yeah, you're aiming towards these things, but there are other goals, like things like owning a certain number of planets outside your home system and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
Now, the planets themselves, they give you different things. They'll give you resources. They give you either they give you both. Most of them give you both. Is it political points of some sort, and the other ones give you resource points for building stuff. Yeah. And it's just, it's kind of difficult to know where to go from here with the explanation, because it's so thick.
Yeah, there is. That's the thing. It's a really rich game that, like you said, there is a simplicity to the mechanics of it, but it allows you for a few. Yeah,
because the meat of the game is you when it's your turn, you choose an action, and your action is either moving or producing various forces, or actioning one of the 8 cards with
strategy cards,
with various
and
that's a main point of the game.
It's really a big thing in that. I mean, there's games that have similar things where you're choosing actions essentially, but the way it works in Twilight Imperium is very different to how other games do it, I think. Essentially, you have your 8 strategies that will, when you're choosing them, that's kind of going to influence how your round is going to go, because it's going to give you bonuses for doing certain things. And
everybody else's rounds as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's lots of strategy, and that's why they probably called strategy cards.
Indeed. Yeah, well done, Pawel.
You've grasped the...
Clicked. Thank you very much. It's about time, yes.
Yeah. But the strategy cards give you, like you say, there's 8 of them, and each one of them is completely different from the others.
Yeah.
And at the start of every turn, everybody has to take one of these. and they're numbered 1 to 8. Whoever take the lowest one, they'll go first in the round and stuff like that. So taking the lowest one can be really beneficial if you really want to do something quickly. But they've got different things. There's stuff like, technology things that let you research technology is one of them. You've got like warfare ones that let you basically move a lot more than other people. That's essentially what it does. You've got other things like trading, so you can set up trade routes with other people
and approve others.
And if you take that, you have to. You have the power to approve other trade routes. You can also use it for evil by basically, instead of setting up trade routes, you can cancel all the trade routes that are going on at the moment. Just wipe them out. And like I say, there's 8 of them. I don't want to go too heavily into them, but the main point of these things is that you have to use that strategy card at some point during your turn that round. You're not allowed to not use it. But everybody, there's also a secondary thing on it. So you get the primary thing on it. So if it's the technology thing, you might get to research the technology for free. But there's a secondary thing on it, which means that everybody else, once you use that card, everybody else can research the technology, but they have to pay for it. And all the cards are like that. They all have a primary thing, they all have a secondary thing, with the exception of the number 1 card, which does something completely different, but we'll not go into that too much. But yeah, so that's basically what it is. So like Pawel says, on your turn, you can basically use your strategy card, or you can move things and build with things, or you can transfer between 2 systems, which is basically just like another type of move, or you can pass. And once you've passed, you're out the round. And
but
once
you can
everybody,
you can still use
secondary abilities on the strategy cards and stuff. But once everybody's passed, the round's over.
And that takes about 2 hours.
Yeah, it does. Each round will take probably about an hour. For a round.
But that's the thing. I mean, the way the round works is quite. You've got a lot going on, and there's quite a lot of power in your individual strategy. So you that's going to affect that entire round. But it's not like the sort of thing where you have a move phase, a build phase, and everything's going on. You do things whenever you need to, and the limiting factor is kind of
the activation tokens.
Your activation tokens, which is it's an odd thing, but it works really well. Essentially, you have there's 3 sections on your player on your race
your
board.
Race sheet.
You have your strategy points, or
strategy
tokens.
allocation,
strategy allocation, military allocation, and command. And you'll have tokens to represent these. Now, you use your strategy tokens to use the
secondary ability on a strategy card.
And the military one, your fleet tokens, essentially, however many tokens you've got in there represents how many ships you can have in your fleet. And then the command ones,
in each fleet,
fleet, that's true.
Fleet.
Yeah basically in one sector.
That's basically what it means.
The what's the other one? The command command tokens used to move your fleets. So you would place them into a sector that you're wanting to move your fleet to, or you can use them for building. So you activate the sector you're using to build things. But once those are placed, you can't then do anything else with that sector or the fleets.
That's one of the most interesting things about this game, because you really have to be careful about what you're doing, because if you wanted to move some ships into a sector to just kind of beef that sector up a bit, and you already had ships in that sector, if you activate that sector, it's like you say, you can't do anything with that sector again, which means that you can't move ships back out of it. So even the ships that hadn't moved, the ships that were already there, they can't then move out. If somebody becomes a bit of a threat, if somebody starts moving towards you or something like that, you've got a massive fleet sitting there, but you've already activated that sector, so you can't do anything with them. They're just stuck there now. So you really have to think about what you're doing. You have to say, if I want to get this fleet out of here before this fleet moves in, I'm going to have to do that. Like, I'm going to have to move them first. Or
if you say you wanted to produce ships in a sector, you already had ships there, you might want to move those ships out of there so you can use them for something else.
And that's one of the interesting things about the tokens, because what you say about the race sheet, about the commands section, about the fleet supply section, about the strategy allocation section, those all use the same tokens. And you have a limited number of those. You get some at the end of every round. You can get some more using some of the strategy cards and stuff like that. But you're limited for the round by how many you've got there, basically, unless you can do something about it during the round. So if you've only got 3 command points there, you can only move 3 fleets worth of stuff. So you have to be careful about. You have to really plan your turns. You really do. Because
it gets you thinking strategically from the get-go, basically. It's,
which is the strength of the game, because those rules, as much as they may seem intimidating at first, are not too difficult, but the game just offers a lot of depth to what you do.
Yeah.
There is plenty of luck factor in the game, whereas whether in your sort of drawing whatever planets you'll have around you and building the actual hexagon board, or whether it's rolling your dice, which some are better at and clearly some are worse. But apart from the luck factor, there's so many different things you can do in this game. That's why it takes so long. A single round in an hour or more, simply because there's so many things you can do, and so many things you have to consider when you're surrounded by backstabbing other players. I mean,
well, yes. I mean, you can have situations where somebody's passed quite early on in the round, and there's people still mucking about doing stuff.
They'll take another 3 turns before they pass, and again, but that comes down to how they've allocated their tokens into their race sheet. Because if they've got loads of tokens in their command thing, they might end up just using them all. Somebody might only have 2, you might have 6. So they'll take their 2 turns, but you've got 6 tokens there that you can move things around with, so your turn can go on a lot longer.
And you'll also be thinking about how you're going to allocate them for the next round, so you might not want to use them all, or you might want to rejig things. Because that's the thing, if you keep a few there, you can suddenly boost your fleet size very quickly, and then just fly in, and there's a lot of sort of planning with that you can do.
Yeah, so, I mean, the game, like, the combat and stuff like that is... The combat feels like it takes longer than it should, I think. But the combat is basically, you've got lots of different types of ships. You've got your little fighters, you've got cruisers, you've got dreadnoughts, you've got destroyers. And you have the War Sun, which is basically the Death Star.
And you've got various upgrades for them as well. Yep. And then you've got racial abilities that also modify it. So by the time you've calculated everything you need to actually deal damage, and I think the most complicated part of it is the order in which various upgraded units deal damage, because some of them do preemptive damage, some of them do damage even before preemptive damage and stuff like this.
And you have to be careful about that when you're going into combat, because if you've got things like destroyers, they can do anti-fighter barrage things, so they can try and take out some of the little fighters, but then you've also got PDS units, so planetary defense systems, sitting on planets that will fire when the fleet moves into the sector, or even when it comes next to the sector if you've got the upgraded abilities.
So those tiny things are actually sort of mucking up a bit the whole gameplay. You have to pay attention to it, and it just takes time. It
does take time, and you do, but we did quite well with that. I think that we really kind of nailed it. Actually,
normally when we play these big games, we don't fight that much, at least at the beginning. Whereas in this game, for some reason, everybody just started shelling at each other fairly early. I was in actual just battleground for everybody else. Just let's go to Pawel's territory and just muscle up. Let's see how.
You say everybody else? You mean one person?
No. I mean, well, yeah. It's fine. I don't hold a grudge.
So basically, what we're saying about this game,
I do.
What you're saying about this game is that you've got a race. You're going out. You're taking over planets in the galaxy to get more resources, to get more political points, and you are building up your
various
fleets,
goals that you think.
Aiming for various goals. You're fighting each other. You're trading with each other. You're researching new technologies. You're going to the Galactic Senate, basically. So there's a pretty fun politics side to this game. I love the politics in this game.
Fun, yes.
Well, it completely modifies the game as you're playing it.
Oh yeah, it does, and it ruined my game.
Oh yeah, I mean, you basically now. It's one of the strategies.
It's one of the strategy cards. It's a politics card.
Yeah.
So basically, when somebody uses that, they can basically. There's a massive deck of politics cards, and I've got the first expansion, which added a hell of a lot more.
Yeah.
And basically, you draw a card from that politics thing, and it'll have some sort of thing that you have to vote on. And depending on what planets you own, so you count up the number of political points you've got on all the planets that you actually own, and that's how many votes that you have, basically. And these things can be like, well, the one that messed me up.
To be fair, most of them were fairly important. Some of them weren't, but most of them...
Most of the ones that we had in our game really affected the game.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really did affect the game. So we had a lot of wormholes in our game.
Yeah.
And one of the first, I think it was the very first
It was always
politics
the
card
first thing, yeah.
that came out was one that was basically to vote on shutting down all the wormholes.
Yeah.
And it, not unanimously, but by quite a decent majority, I think, it went through.
Yeah.
Now, my secret objective was to own every sector that had a wormhole in it. And that made it impossible for me because we played with the Wormhole Nexus, which is a completely separate tile from the board, which has wormholes in it, and you have to go through wormholes to get to it. So I couldn't get to it.
But it was an interesting one, that, because,
And remind me, the secret objective was worth 2 points, yeah?
I think mine was, yeah. I think it
Most of
possibly
them
tells you, I think, maybe they're all like that, but I think
mine
it tells
was,
you on the card.
Mine was hold all the planets in somebody's home sector for one turn, and that was a trading race, so I was like, nah, I'm not even going to attempt.
You barely held on to your own home sector.
barely. At some point I had really just nobody there, apart from the fact that the invading forces couldn't really spare men to land there.
It's alright, I sacrificed mine to win the game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But where?
No, well, I'm actually just thinking, but I think we don't want to go too heavy on the rules explanation. We have talked quite a bit about the rules there. But
One thing I did want to say about the politics that we kind of glossed over there was that, what I was going to bring up was, no matter how you vote, no matter which way the vote goes with the political cards, there's always going to be some consequence.
Yes.
And and the reason, like we were saying with the wormhole one there, it was basically if you voted for it, and this was, and it felt like there was a real flavour to this, where you were voting as a sort of galactic Senate or whatever, saying like, look, these wormholes are dangerous, we want to close them off, and that was the for vote. Against it was, if you voted against it, any ships, I think, any large ships that were in the same sector as a wormhole would be lost, because presumably there was some kind of creatures or something coming through these wormholes, and that and pretty much everyone. So there was always some consequence, and you were everybody had their own agenda when it came to the politics, and that was it.
Yeah, because quite a lot of the for votes would possibly really boost somebody or really dent somebody, like depending on the situation. But the against votes always had some bad stuff that would happen. Yeah. So it was like you had to really weigh up your options. It was like, right, if I vote for this thing, this could benefit me in the future, and if I vote against it, it could really mess him up. So, so yeah, there was total like you say, everybody had their own agenda, and I love that. I absolutely love, even though it really messed me up, I still absolutely love the politics in this game. I think it's really, really fun.
And it's one of the funnier moments when you actually draw 3 of those cards and pick just one, which is what also happens when you go for the strategy card at some point.
Yeah, so that was...
Because even that is already part of your planning.
Yeah, so that was one of the things, if you took the politics thing, not only did you vote for... not only did you draw a card for everybody to vote on, but you also drew 3 cards from the politics deck and then put one of those of your choice on top of the deck, which means that would be the next one that came out. So you would be able to set up the next agenda, basically. Yeah. And only you would know what that is, so you could work towards that.
So each of these strategy cards really gives the player that drew it quite a lot of power, but obviously narrowed down to a specific function. The trade card was really powerful, probably didn't affect too many players that much, but the faction that's supposed to be heavily trading, that was a card that I pretty much had to rely on. I suppose in games like this, when you play a faction that is designed to be just interested in one thing predominantly, you have to follow that strategy. Whereas, as Euan said, you're gonna sometimes have factions that can adapt to certain situations, which is probably easier to play. They have less strengths, but also might just be easier to play. I was playing a trading race, and I think this is now becoming a tradition that I just can't trade whenever I'm playing trading people, because the same thing was happening in Endless Space too. I just couldn't trade for some reason, and in this game, trading is actually just people agreeing with between each other and usually bribing themselves or finding various strategic reasons to exchange goods with another player.
I think the trade probably is one element of that game where we maybe let ourselves down, where we didn't give it the full sort of like I
don't know, man. I benefited quite nicely out of Pawel.
Oh, you did alright, yeah. That's the thing. Like, I was kind of giving away, like, because I think both of my trade. Basically, you have every race has 2 trading cards that are worth a certain number of goods. And everything's kind of slightly off kilter, so some people might only be able to trade 1 or 2 goods. Like, I had 2 cards that were worth 2.
Yeah, and they're all between 1 and 3.
Yeah, and I was pretty much always giving them away for lower things because I was like, look, I'll take something
because it's better than nothing.
Yeah,
but look at how important it is to be able to actually not approve somebody's trade.
Yeah,
the whole trade card is actually very powerful. But, you know, at some point you also realise that everybody else is trading with us. You've not even been given an opportunity, which is what happened to me.
Didn't you spend, like, the last half of the game just any time it came up, just spitefully not allowing me and Gav to trade with each other? We just had this minor thing. It's like, we just want to do that. No.
I was, truthfully, yes, the second half of the game, because I was completely incapacitated, couldn't do a thing. The only thing I could do, I was doing.
Well, let's talk about how our game went then. All right,
okay, yeah.
Because like I said, I don't want to go too thick on the rules of how everything works.
And it's a flavourful game. It's something every game will have its own thing.
This is the kind of game that you play that you talk about for ages afterwards. It was like when we had Lance on the show and he was talking about. Remember that time we played Agricola?
Yeah.
2 wood.
Well, I think Twilight Imperium was one of the ones he brought up in that when he was talking about that.
And he's right. He's totally right. This because we've still chatted about it. Like I still give you a bit of a ribbon for it, Pawel. When, despite the fact I tried to save you, like I tried my hardest to save you.
That is true. Yes.
Like despite all the years, like I had to forgive like the years of backstabbing you've done to me in other games, in particular that really bitter Civilization game we played.
I was not a backstab. That was a blatant domination.
It wasn't backstab.
You extorted me and then destroyed me anyway.
But I admit it was enjoyable.
But there we go. There's another game where you bring that up years later.
We've brought it up on the podcast several times.
So this is the same game. So what happened? Well, I was the Wizix Mindnet. That was the race I was. They were essentially the Borg. Yeah. And I thought that was quite fun because every time I've played Twilight Imperium, I think I've played it 3 times before now. I've always gone some either really defensive race or some
sciencey people,
pretty not sciencey or basically not combat focused race. So I thought I'll go someone that's a bit more combat focused. Now the Wizix Mind, their whole power is to do with dreadnoughts essentially. So their dreadnoughts can. Really, they can take on War Suns quite happily once you've upgraded them a certain point, and they did.
Still gave you a bit of a hiding, mind you.
Well, we'll get to that. But Pawel, you were.
I was the cats.
The Emirates of Hassan.
Zakan, Hazan, something like that. I was basically the trading cats. My whole power was benefiting from trade much more than the others, and my trade routes would be fairly immune to other people's vetoes and stuff like this, which just really didn't work out for me at all. Because for the first half of the game, I couldn't even trade, and by the time I started making money, I literally had no planets at all. I was completely conquered, and the only reason why I stayed in the game was because people couldn't be bothered just killing me off for good.
That's not entirely true. I chased Dave off.
But I was going to say, yes, that this is one of those games, because if you lose or start losing in a game, you either spot it straight away and you have ways to maybe try and climb back up or not. This game takes a long time to progress through a single round, which means you see that you're losing. Your luck might just change at some point, but it's going to happen 3 or 4 hours later. But it's also such a rich game and setting and rules that you just enjoy seeing what's happening on the board no matter what.
Yeah.
And because this game sort of encourages various alliances and backstabbing and the like, I don't know, it happened in the previous game as well. It's not everybody just plays for themselves, period. There is alliances forming up for whatever temperamental reasons or even flavorful reasons, and I really enjoy that part. and I could see like on one hand there was this sort of Dave was playing these Mentec people, which are like some sort of definitely backstabbing, but like telepathic, some sort of conqueror people that are really difficult to beat in battle. But in any case, on my other hand were the Borg, which were promising defense, but clearly were just going to convert me, which I knew was happening. But
no. That's not entirely true, because the people that would probably convert you would have been Euan's race, which were...
And Euan's race were?
Well, we were the Embers of Muat,
yes.
A race called the Gashlai. I got really into the backstory. I read the entire
and those
thing
were
of the
amazing
backstory.
guys.
I kind of...
Sorry, I thought you were... No, it was Gav that had the clones, wasn't it?
Gav had
the
clones,
yes.
Because they were the two...
that's who I meant was probably going to convert you, Pavel.
Because myself and Gav I think we were the only two folk playing with races from the expansion.
From the expansion, aye.
And I was, because the thing I remember sitting there with the board, because I remember this from having seen the game before, that there was really extensive like backstory to these races, and they'd put a lot of effort into them.
It's quite nice that, because the backs of all the race sheets have some sort of backstory for them, so that you can really get into what race you're playing if you feel that way. I didn't read mine. I just went, I'm the Borg.
Even the planet cards will usually have flavor text. So obviously the starting planets you start with will have additional flavor text for you, which made me realise that I may be playing a trading race, but it's a very poor race. They've never really had much money, and for some reason they've decided, let's trade whatever we have, and we have nothing with the rest of the galaxy.
They thought they found spice.
It was just sand.
It was just sand.
And when you said that your race was a bunch of barbarians, because I wasn't later I've realised your people are very fiery, but at the beginning you mentioned that they were very primitive, but they had the technology of they had one Warson to begin with, and in my mind,
Pavel, if you let him speak, he'll tell you.
I'm gonna shut up. Well, no, they were an interesting race, because, and I really enjoyed playing them, and I enjoyed playing to their strengths, because they did kind of have quite a set way to play them, with having the Warson, starting off with the Warson.
Yeah, that's quite powerful.
And I read about that, and again, that was like, there was a good bit of flavour to that, where the backstory of this race, essentially they were from this planet that was essentially, they were lava people.
Yeah, they lived on a lava planet.
And they'd been enslaved by the race that James was playing as, which was like a sort of scientific, the Jolnar.
The Jolnar,
Universities of Jolnar, who'd basically come to their planet being like, what is this? Tried to extract some weird resource, but no, the only people that could live on this planet were my race. They were essentially fire people who created some kind of exosuit thing that allowed them to travel the galaxy in this Warsun that was left behind when some virus from some fiery virus infected the Jolnar.
Oh, nice.
There's a good backstory there. So I was constantly holding that over James's head. I was like, "What, you watch it? We've had enough of you.
You role-played your race.
Oh, I properly did." But the idea was they were sort of attempting to kind of. They were an emerging race in the galaxy, and they were trying to sort of. They'd arrived at Mechatol Rex and been like, "Listen, we want a voice in this." In this Senate or whatever.
Well, you were the first one to invade it.
Well, I was the first one to
kill
get
off
there.
All the defenders, so that's your democratic. We want a voice.
You really find the power of the Warsun. They are ridiculous.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, the main difference about Warsuns is that most ships in the game, in fact, all the ships in the game, will roll one dice when they attack, and you just have to. It's a 10-sided dice, and they've all got. All the different ships have got a different combat number, and as long as you roll that number or higher, you've scored a hit. Now, the Warsuns roll 3 dice, and they've basically got 2 health.
Yeah.
Which basically all the other ships, except the Dreadnoughts, they've got 2 health as well, only have 1. So basically, if you score a hit on a ship, it's dead, but the Warsuns will take 2.
Yeah.
And...
But is it...
Sorry, yeah,
I was actually just thinking about that, getting into the combat. And we were talking about it earlier, but it is quite tactical. So essentially the way that works is you roll for whatever you're firing.
Yeah.
And then you count up your numbers of hits, and then that's affected on each side. But the players taking the damage, they choose.
Yeah, they choose.
Which ship. So it's essentially like, you're maybe going to sacrifice this to keep this in play or whatever like that. So there is like a real element of tactics. But yeah, they start off with a combat, so you have to roll higher than a 3.
Yeah,
to get a hit with
and that's the other
you're
thing
pretty
about
much
Warsun.
Most of the starting ships, all of the other ones, are between like 7 and 9.
Yeah,
you've got to try and
like the fighters are 9.
Yeah,
so only 9s and 10s hit with a fighter and stuff.
Yeah,
but the other thing about Warsuns is that they can take fighters with them. So you can basically use them as a damage sponge.
Well, this is the other thing about this raid that I absolutely loved, was that you could use your strategy tokens if you weren't too bothered about using the other strategy cards. You could use your strategy tokens as many times as you wanted.
Yeah.
To put either a destroyer or 2 free fighters. Now the destroyers weren't worth it, but you could just stick 2 free fighters in, and you could spawn them wherever your war sons were. So you could just have 6 fighters quite easily, constantly surrounding your war sons, and they do a reasonable amount, and you can upgrade fighters to do a reasonable amount of damage.
Yeah, you can.
I didn't need any other types of ships.
Yeah.
There was no point.
And that's what's beautiful about the different races in this game, is that they
do feel different.
They do feel different, because it's like you say, you just needed to make war sons and fighters.
Yeah.
I just needed to make dreadnoughts.
Yeah.
Because my dreadnoughts were ridiculous. By the end of the game, they were incredibly mental. To use any other, for want of a better word, sorry.
Mental.
They were mental. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I played the Lizix Mindnet, and the only thing that I could really say about the Lizix Mindnet, which I said to Pawel on several occasions when I was coming to help him, is we are Borg.
You said that on any given occasion where you were sort of
taking part in politics. Yeah, we are Borg. They were just they basically just had upgraded dreadnoughts. I think they got some sort of bonus to their cruisers or something as well. I can't actually remember, but dreadnoughts also cost less resources to make, which was real powerful, because very early in the game I had all my dreadnoughts on the board, like just all of them, and they were there and they were ready. Now there wasn't really much more flavour. I didn't do what you did. I didn't read the flavour text in the back. I wish I had now, actually, because it sounds like it could have been interesting. Because if they were the Borg sort of race, then there clearly would have been some other race at some point. So maybe they were the remnants, is like maybe the Jolnar again. Maybe those arseholes.
Probably. They do seem like they're a bit nefarious. Yeah. But they were one that I'd looked at actually beforehand when quite wanting to play.
Now my thing in the game was, like I said, that politics card at the start of the game kind of shut me down. Yeah. Because I was going to go straight for the wormholes at the beginning of the game, and I was building up my fleet ready to do that. And then I felt a bit lost when the wormholes got shut down. I didn't know what to do. But then Dave made his aggressive push into Pawel's territory.
Which was actually, Dave kept saying it's really not aggressive, because...
As he was decimating
as he was just flying through all of my space, which I couldn't defend because I couldn't even afford a couple of ships because I had no money.
Pawel, you got really unlucky though against your combat rolls against Dave. Your combat rolls at the beginning of the game were so bad.
To be fair, as everybody was building up their fleet, I lost most of my fleet fighting NPCs.
That happened to me as well.
Yeah, and couldn't even afford new ships because everybody was trading and I wasn't. Which is what happens when you have a race really just dedicated to one particular powerful thing, but it's very easy to just shut down a race. But
what actually happened was that when I got a bit lost, I went after Dave basically, because I was just like, I actually felt sorry for you because he was completely destroying you very early in the game, and I thought to myself, that's pretty bad. That's that's a shit thing to do to somebody.
To Dave's defense, he actually had a secret goal to occupy 11 planets or something like this.
Yeah.
And his whole intention, and he actually proved to be truthful, is he just wanted to visit them, occupy them, grab his points, and then move back. But
he didn't though.
No, he didn't.
He occupied the places and then stayed there.
No, which is fine because I could, in the end.
So the Borg formed a little alliance with you.
It actually looked like a wall of bodies at some point.
They sent a bunch of dreadnoughts and the transport ships with a whole load of fighters and ground units and stuff into your systems.
You've stopped his
march.
And
I stopped them. Yeah, I just pushed them back.
I must say it was epic.
That side of the board was very interesting to look at for the most part of the game.
It was really colourful.
Yeah,
there was lots of yellow and blue and red.
Yeah. There wasn't that much yellow.
It was like watching sort of like war reports from Syria sort of thing. You didn't know what was going on and who was aggressing who, and who was it Peter, who was it Allied.
Why the hell is it happening?
Why is this happening?
The good thing about this is that the outcome of that for me was that when Pawel used these trade powers to get shitloads of trade goods, he gave them all to me.
Yeah,
like,
for
every single last one.
I think for about 2 or 3 rounds, all I was doing, because I was absolutely assured that I cannot do anything else until the end of the game, because I had no forces left. I had one leader on some planet. I had no ground forces. I had one planetary artillery thing, and that's that, I think.
Yeah.
I possibly had one. Yes, I think I had one of those space stations that you can use to produce things.
Yeah.
But it was blockaded by other forces, so I couldn't really produce stuff on it anyway. So I thought, nah, I can't do anything anymore. The only thing I could just go home, really, or I can stay and make sure that Chris defeats Dave. So let's just throw money at him.
Yep.
And the one thing you can do with the trading race, obviously, is as soon as you secure your trading routes, you pretty much just keep them till the end of the game. Or if you want better, you can go for better ones. But my problem was, it took me 3 turns to actually do it. So for the first 2 or 3 rounds, I had no money at all. But once I started getting it, I was just siphoning everything to you.
Yep.
I could even trade action cards as well. So I just like, here, Chris, have a look.
Yeah, but you know you've got a problem though when your strategy is to give everything you have to the Borg.
Yes, I've realised it at some point, because as much as Chris was defending me from Dave, maybe 4 rounds later, Chris said, "Sorry, Pavel, we are the Borg."
I didn't actually attack you in the end because it wasn't
you
worth
did. I just defended.
No, I didn't.
No, you did.
No, I didn't. Not
you attempted to take my planets in the
no,
last round.
that was the last round of the game, but I needed to do that.
Yes, this is exactly what
However,
I kept seeing this in the game. Every single player during every single aggression attempt kept apologizing to the others and kept assuring them, "Listen, I'm only killing your folks because I need this, but then I'll back away." Every single one of us was.
I think I only apologised to you. I was not sorry for any other killing that I did in that game.
Because you were the Borg.
Yeah, because we are the Borg. But I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh yeah, those trade goods that you gave me, I then spent all of that to make absolutely tons of ground forces, just lots of little Borg that I then sent across the galaxy into Mechatol Rex. You know, I had an epic fight with James actually on Mechatol Rex, where I basically 2 of my dreadnoughts took out his war son and his entire fleet basically that was sitting there, and then I quickly emptied Mechatol Rex. Much to, I think it was Gav that was, or was it Dave that tried to come and hit me in Mechatol Rex.
Dave had a fleet ready to come, and you just
and I just
laughed off
because he needed to do something in particular. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
In order to get something, I don't know if it was an action card or something he had, but he was absolutely gutted. He was like, "Oh no, don't move!" I was like, "See, I've got the points for Mechatol Rex now, so I'm gone."
But I think everybody did like Mechatol Rex was played quite interesting because like James basically maybe not the wisest move, where he built up a fleet and started moving it towards. And that was kind of what I was deliberately avoiding doing.
Yeah.
It was just like this kind of, big military build-up, right, I'm going to do this, because everybody sees you coming.
Yeah.
And then I basically manoeuvred myself into a position where I could just whack my Warsons into Mechatol Rex, take the place, hold it for a couple of rounds, and then get out of there. And I actually left one Warson just to cripple his fleet when he came in. Just sacrificed it.
I think that I've just realised that was one of the good things about that game that we played there, because I've played games of Twilight Imperial where people have turtled, where they've basically just sat in their own, where they've taken over some planets and then sat and built and built and built and built and built.
Maybe attempted to fight in the last or next to last round.
And what we had going was basically a production line of just, these guys are going out, they're having a fight, we're making some more. These guys are going out, we're having making some more.
It felt like there was an actual,
and it would just kept
interaction.
Fluid, just building ships, sending them out, getting in a fight, losing ships, building more, just constantly doing that.
See, mine looked a bit different here.
Yours was basically a reverse production line.
I wasn't even able to produce anything until I finally just chucked out a few ships at the end.
The problem with your production line, Pavel, was that you missed out the production part. It was just the destruction bit.
Yes, definitely. But I just want to say that in a game where everybody was flying around with and Warsons and Dreadnoughts and just having these epic battles, and I've not produced a single Dreadnought or Warson for that matter in the game. Cruiser was as far as I've managed to go, and I was still the only player to actually claim the most fighting goal in the game, which was defeat more than three or more ships.
Space battles,
defeat
in
more than
turn.
3 ships in 2 battles on the same round, and nobody else got that, and I got that, and I felt like I was this avenging sort of resistance fighter, coming off from the dunes like the Fremen. Yes. Honestly, that game has a lot of flavor, and you get into the RPG element of
totally.
it.
No, you do.
Aye.
Well, I do always, you know.
Pavel,
Naturally.
we are Borg.
Well, there you go.
Well, I mean, even things like it just happened to be the objective card that I drew, but it worked really well for my race, and it was called threatening because essentially what I had to do was in one round control 2 systems adjacent to 2 other players' home systems.
Yeah.
And so it was basically this thing of like, who are these nutters who have just appeared? Should we be scared of them? And I kind of just went, right, bam, sorted.
Nice.
And it kind of like, and it was like, Gav was like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's fine. Don't
worry about it.
And you're saying that there was a lot of like promising, and I genuinely didn't touch any of him. He did then invade my home system, a planet which only my race could live on.
You could actually film a proper series of a science fiction show.
Well, the one thing when we came away, it was like the game ended, and I was like, do you know what? I'd actually like to take this game off where it ended, because like now I have an objective. It's like my race has been. We might have won the game, but we've been cast out into the galaxy.
Yeah.
At what cost? What cost? Now we've got to try and now we're nomads. We've got to try and reclaim our home planet.
That was quite interesting when you said that at the end of the game. When you said that basically it would be like fun to just pick up this game again where it left off. If you managed to just kind of like created some sort of rules for that, so that you could just like, this is the layout of the galaxy. You and your race has lost its home planet. Pawel is like starting to rebuild after being destroyed. The Borg are everywhere, but they were everywhere, but then on that last round of the game were just decimated. And they had like nothing left. But still own
previously
lots of planets.
In Twilight Imperium.
Basically, like previously in Twilight Imperium. Suddenly, Gav's race is living on a planet they can't live on.
Well, he was very expansive. I mean, I was in a very weak position at the end of the game. Another round, if it had continued a few more rounds, I probably would have been knackered. I wasn't going to get anywhere from where I was.
But that's what happened to me in the last round, isn't it? It's just like, because it was neck and neck with us, me and you.
Yeah.
It was neck, because despite the fact that like for the first 5 turns of the game, I think I only scored 2 points in total.
Right.
And I mean, I was on pretty much at the same level as Pawel, who had his forces decimated. I just couldn't score anything, it just seemed. But then eventually I got to a point where me and you were up at like, I think you were on 9 and I was on 8 or something like that.
I think it was my Mechatol Rex gambit that it just pushed me right up way ahead of everyone, but then I kind of slowed down after that and everyone started coming up to that. There was about 6 or 7 points, something like that.
And I think I only needed to score 2 points, and I could have easily done it. And I did a Pawel. I went into combat and rolled so badly.
Yeah, unfortunately that happens.
I just completely lost, and there was the most annoying thing about it is that I had like 3 options.
Yeah.
Like, so there was 3 ways that I could have got these 2 points, and I tried them all, and they all failed. And if the thing is, I don't feel bad about that at all, because the game was just that good, and I enjoyed it that much, and that's just the way that rolling dice works sometimes.
Well, luck was on Massey a couple of times with just the way that the round order came out and the things that, like the strategy cards that people chose. There was one round, I think, in fact, the one that allowed me to take the 2 home planets, it was based on very specific things coming to pass, and me having, because I didn't have the resources I needed, because I needed a War Sun just to get. I had to build a new one to get to where I needed to be. and I needed the technology that made the war sun cheap enough for me to afford and for me to get the resources, and it all just came out the way that I needed it to happen for me to do that, and it was pure luck that sort of. But I was just like, right, I'll take a gamble on this, and hopefully it'll come to pass.
There is lack element in this game, but still, there's such a variety that you can carve your path through all the options. And this is probably one of the first games where I truly actually felt that alliances actually do matter, because if everybody was for themselves in this game, the whatever victory points total count at the end of the game would have been quite different, but because the Borg defended me, I was able to score actually more points that Dave, who has pretty much destroyed my empire altogether. I still ended up with more points than him, which I wasn't even sure if it would be possible, and it was. Yeah. Simply because
I think he didn't actually accumulate a lot of points.
Yeah, Dave's bloodlust got ahead of his victory point gathering.
But that's the sort of thing, you can kind of follow a certain path, it's like, and then get stuck.
Yeah,
and you have to be prepared to adapt and try different things in it.
Because you're trying to grasp so many different things you can do. Sometimes it's easy to lose track of your end game, which is how to actually get not just some victory points, but more than anybody else, which includes most of the victory cards you see on the board, and probably also your secret objective as well. And at some point, if you're not prepared to actually go for Mechatol Rex or try and resolve your secret objective, you know that you're not going to make it. I've never reached Mechatol Rex because I was busy entrenching myself with one guy that I had left in the dunes. But Dave had plenty of systems. But again, he was unlucky enough. His secret objective was very demanding. And as soon as the Borg moved in, they just robbed him of the one system he could have claimed.
Yeah,
and that was his main plan, pretty much foiled. And then he was on the defensive, and I was just guerrilla fighter with no fighters. But I was good. See, but this is one of those games that you know that you're losing, and it's not something you can turn around quickly. It's gonna take ages, and you're still just enjoying it. There's so much variety in it.
Yeah. And it's another thing that unless there's some weird vendetta going on out with the game, I don't think you're going to have somebody just stomping on you for the entirety of the game. You're going to get probably a bit of breathing space at some point. You just have to kind of find that. And things like, I mean, you mentioned earlier about you giving him trade goods for your little sort of alliance. There's no formal game mechanic for alliances, which is a strength of the game.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because it makes it
it makes it more flexible.
Yeah, and nothing's set in stone. I mean, it kind of does say that in the rules essentially. No, there's no binding agreements, but there's no sort of silly things like you trade a card or something like that.
Or you have to give this for that.
Yeah, because that would be too restricting.
Yeah.
But it allows, it gives you a bit of freedom.
It is the metagaming that is the game's biggest bit of fun, really.
And if you're willing to do it.
And I could see that it actually made a difference.
Yeah. And it's because, I mean, again, because when it comes to the politics and stuff, it's all about trying to convince other people to do this thing. So, because you can just freely give people, like, trade goods and stuff like that. So you can just say, like, look, you vote for this with your 15 vote points, and I'll give you this thing. But again, like you say, nothing's binding, so you just be like, oh, you voted for it, you're not getting it.
And we saw that in game, and it was fun.
That's why I was quite keen on when we did the politics thing of just doing everything properly, like having the initial presentation of the thing, and then going round in the votes and everything like that, and having discussion and stuff before. I think if you're willing to kind of commit to that level of just nitpickery, it is actually worth it in this game.
Aye, and we had a good group for that. Yeah. Like that made it so worthwhile. The people that we had playing with us,
they're not just going to rush through everything.
Yeah, they weren't going to rush through. They weren't going to moan. They were like they weren't going to, and they were willing to take the metagame sort of kind of semi-seriously at least, but not. But at the end of the day, they know it's just a bit of fun, so they're not going to like hold grudges or anything like that. Because we've played a game of this before with people that weren't quite so friendly, and it wasn't as much fun. It wasn't as much fun. Oh, you were there, Pawel.
What?
You know, remember when the certain person threatened to go home?
Oh god, yes.
See that you can't play this game with those types of people. In fact, well, you can, but you shouldn't.
I would be. I mean, I don't know if I'd be so interested to play it, but certainly to witness like a game maybe between a bunch of very experienced players, but who did have that sort of cutthroat mentality
really
about. I mean, maybe if we keep playing it, that's the way it would end up going. You know, I think on a first game we're sort of being a bit sort of. But we don't want to.
You probably end up with fists being thrown, though.
Possibly,
because
you can't sit next to someone who's doing that to you. Just be that's fine.
If you had two people that were really competitive and one of them did to the other what Dave did to Pawel, that's probably not going to end well.
No, but that's not the thing, because one thing is you're trying to grasp the rules and you can see things unfolding in front of you, and it just takes time. Emotions... if people are really getting angry about ball gaming, those are the people that I suppose play tennis and start, I don't know, breaking their rackets or something.
Yeah.
Because things are not going according to what they'd like. But you know, and
but that's what I'm saying. Don't play this game with those people.
Yeah.
What I meant to actually clarify is people who aren't going to throw a hissy fit, but more that they will really go for each other and are willing to play that tactical kind of just like I'll do these alliances. I'd like to see intricacies form in that game.
I think this is what I meant by everybody just saying, listen, I'm not really, I don't mean anything by it, but I'm just going to snatch one of your planets. Sorry, this is what everybody kept saying at the table. And I might just kept saying to Dave that, oh my god, you stabbed me in the back and stuff like this. And he was... I do apologise, Dave, if you're listening, because I'm usually into the RPG element of these things. So I'm going to get very sort of... like acting as if I've been betrayed by a person that just a round ago promised to be my ally, which is... To be fair, not ally as such, but yeah, we had trading agreement and stuff like this. We had a thing going, man, and suddenly you're just there. I trusted you, and things like this. This is what this game is about, really, and this is what the fun is about. If somebody actually takes it personally when they betrayed in a game like this, then you know what, they deserve to lose. Because fair point. And they probably suffer through the game as well, because this game literally is about one person winning. Yes, so in the end, and you can only really win if you actually maneuver through other players, not only with your forces, but also with all the political voting and all the alliances that you form up and eventually break. This is the way to win this game.
Yeah.
So, yes, good luck to anyone that would actually take things seriously and get annoyed by things that are happening in the game. I suppose there are rage quitters nowadays that just play a PvP video game, and if they can get stabbed in the back, they just throw the controller down. But I don't think Twilight Imperium is this sort of game.
No. It's not for those people.
Kind of people.
It's not for those people. Does anybody want to add anything else?
A fun game, but it takes a toll. But
it does take a toll.
It leaves you with it's like you've been through a lot. I'm gonna say not just an adventure, but more like a bloody RPG campaign. Because it's so long, you feel like you've been actually through a series of different stories.
And that's it. And that's what Twilight Imperium feels like, because like we said when we started talking about this, it's the kind of thing that you will talk about. Like we'll still be talking about this game for probably years to come.
Yeah, I'm not holding a grudge, Dave. Not at all. I'm not saying that backstabbing will happen at any point, but it might.
Yeah. And I'll still be crowing about my victory for years to come.
So I've still got this image in my head of all these screaming cats on a planet that were just being incinerated by some invasion force, and then the Borg cubes just warping in.
I had 3 home planets in my system, all of them, jewels of my empire that actually never came to be. And they weren't jewels, they were just suns. It was clearly stated on my home planet cards that they had nothing on them apart from some sort of rare stuff that nobody cared for, and I actually had to create the
demand for
it, which is what business is about, I suppose. But I had 3 planets, and they've went through my entire newly conquered space, settled on those 2 planets, and on the remaining planet I had no forces at all. So in my mind, it was just a couple of still smoking old cats who survived all the space battles just on the last dune.
I was there, man.
Just waiting for the Armageddon, and suddenly the cubes arrive and just decimate all those other planets. But you still, your last cats are still there in their reservations, pretty much, just looking at the space. Yeah, we've been saved. Our culture. It's like the last of the whatever Vulcans, yeah. The planet that doesn't exist anymore, but you still remember.
I wonder whether maybe the Borg in this game picked up some element of humanity that they were able to think.
No. Well, I've figured out what's happened. Actually, the Borg have turned up and just went, we can't make Borg out of cats, and then turned around and left again.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what happened. And then my resistant fighters rose from the dunes, all dusty, and started fighting. And I actually rolled a couple of good dice.
Have you got your sound effect, Pawel?
No, I've not. But we're gonna have to edit in some cat sounds
all the way through.
A roar kind of resolving into slightly pathetic mewling sound.
There was plenty of kitty hissing during the game.
Right, so summarise this then. Twilight Imperium.
Let's do it again.
Better than Eclipse.
Much longer than Eclipse.
Much longer than Eclipse.
Eclipse is a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, no, it was just one that when we were shifting all the board games the other day, and I was looking at Eclipse, and I was just thinking, and it is a different game, but then it was like there's
similarities.
Knock-off elements were starting to annoy me about it.
But Eclipse is more like a Euro style space game, which is kind of weird. It does work though.
Yeah.
And I still enjoy Eclipse, and it's much shorter.
I think
than
it was the artwork
Twilight
on the
Imperium.
box as well. Like Twilight Imperium has some. Again,
beautiful.
Rich detail to it, great artwork,
Yeah.
real thought put into the races, and really unique races as well. I mean, yeah, there's little things like, that could be a bit construed being like the Borg, but they have really unique elements to them I think.
But there are some like really cool ones. I mean, like the clone race. I remember reading the sort of story for that when I first got the expansion, and I actually think that they're quite interesting because all their clones are all like got some skin thing going on, like their just faces are all just covered in crap, and it's all to do with like the guy that was the original clone had some disease that he then managed to cure, but he couldn't cure the actual symptoms. If you see, it stopped killing him or something.
But it's still
and then he cloned himself and he made. So everybody looks like him, but they've all got the disease. So
that's really weird.
It's like, but it's those little things that they've put in. Just like you say, the thought that they've put into the races and stuff like that. It's so good. It's so good, and yeah, the artwork, the pieces, all of that. It's all brilliant.
And you know what? I think the fact that this particular game played out so differently to the previous one that we played. Because I waited a long time to play Twilight Imperium again because I really enjoyed the previous one. But I do remember that the previous one, and also quite a few other big strategy games that we played, it would always unfold in a similar way where everybody is very defensive and very careful for the majority of the game, and then maybe start some invasions at the very end of it. And I think we actually... I think, in all honesty, that Dave may have just encouraged a different play style in this particular round.
I think,
because early in the game, they've just pretty much just buttered me to death, and everybody else started fighting, and it was so different to the previous game we played, and really enjoyable.
Anything else, Euan?
No, I absolutely agree.
Aye.
Well, I do love this game.
I love this game.
I didn't expect to enjoy it quite as much as I did, but I think I went in with a really open mind of it. So we're going to make a day of this because you have to kind of, you're committing to that level of the game.
And while we were playing it, I could feel that like everybody there was actually enjoying it as well, despite how long it was taking and stuff like that. It didn't feel like anybody was getting stressed or anything like that. Even when Pawel was being completely wiped all over the floor. Like,
Dave, the cats will have their revenge.
So yeah, that's Twilight Imperium 3rd edition, which is by Fantasy Flight Games. This is
Fantasy Flight, bloody.
Oh yeah, it's Fantasy Flight.
I think this is the crown jewel.
This 3rd edition came out in 2005 and is still going strong.
So there's not been another edition of it?
No.
Have there been many more expansions?
I think there are. Right. There are 2 expansions I know of, but I haven't looked into it. I've only got the first one. We played with the first one, which adds some pretty cool little things into it and stuff. But
really good.
Yeah. And that is designed by Christian T. Peterson. There are other people's names on the board, on the box, but I think it's essentially he was the guy that came up with the original idea for Twilight Imperium.
Big mad.
I don't know how the other editions match up to 3rd edition, but this 3rd edition, brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, and Euan, as a Eurogame lover, you saying that this is brilliant.
I'm converted to, like, epic battle sort of tactics.
So, this was the first, and what I'm trying to do is basically play a load of more epic games, so we're trying to get some more set up. I've got plans for it. It's about time we played Civilization again. So I've got plans to do that. It's been years now since we've played that. But the next one up, I think, is the World of Warcraft board game, controversially. So, which it's, again, is a game which has pretty basic rules, but takes a long time to play. And I've got the expansions for it. I haven't played it with those yet, so those add a hell of a lot more, including dungeons and stuff like that. So that should be fun. That'll be the next epic game that we'll talk about. But we haven't played any other board games. So that's the end of the board game section, and that took an hour.
I think that was fair. I think it warranted it.
Yeah, definitely warranted it. It's like I said, we could have probably talked a hell of a lot more about what went on. We could have gone on and on. But that's the end of the show. Hey. Episode 30 in the bag.
Goodness me.
So, let's do some internets here.
Okay.
If you want to email us, so if you've got questions or anything like that, any comments or suggestions, anything you'd like us to talk about, anything at all, you can send an email to firstplayertoken@gmail.com, so that's FIRST player token. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, that's @1ST player token. Because it turned out, actually, I was wrong about somebody else stealing that. It turns out that you can't have a name that long.
Oh, that's
FIRST, so we had to change it to 1ST player token. We're on SoundCloud. We are on iTunes. Please give us a review. We have a YouTube channel. You can find us there. My Twitch username is Unnecessary Chris. At the moment, we have moved into a new place and have no internet, which was supposed to be fixed today, and the modem is still flashing orange, so that's not working yet.
Cheers, BT.
So I'm going to have to make a phone call about that. So once we get that set up, I'll start streaming again. Our website, we have had some problems with. It does exist, but that's www.firstplayertoken.com. So there is something on there, but it's basically just a holding page at the moment. There's nothing.
We will be
there's
adding
not much
more
content on there. We're going to have to have a chat about what we're going to do about that. And we are part of the Podnose Network, which is the UK's leading independent podcast entertainment network.
Podcasting network.
Yes,
I believe,
I couldn't remember what order the words were.
I think that basically
what do you
there
mean
isn't
by
another
the
one.
independent parts? Are the corporate podcast networks?
Oh, probably.
Well, see,
There's
I suppose
corporate
things like you talk about, like, I guess the BBC or whatever, because they put out podcasts of all their stuff, and that would all be under one banner sort of thing.
Gotcha.
But Podnose is kind of emulating sort of newer things that have been popping up around a sort of group. Everyone, new sort of new media and that,
Aye, new media.
Yeah. Just that new media, Ken. They recently started a Patreon up for that. I just thought it's probably mentioned that.
Go for it.
So you can donate to Podnose now. I think just basically it's trying to raise a bit of funds for running costs and things like that. Because a lot of the website stuff's farmed out to Squarespace and all these mail demons. The mailer demon.
So that's podnose.com.
Yes.
If you want to go to the website, and that's just there's just a whole bunch of podcasts on there.
All sorts of
we're the best one. So, I probably shouldn't say that. Actually, you might not go. We're easily the worst one. So check that out. There's a whole load of podcasts on a whole load of topics. And there we go. Shall we come back in a couple of weeks?
Let's.
Yeah, let's do that. And hopefully we'll be more settled, play some more games, get more Shenmue chat on the go.
We should.
We may even complete it.
Shenmue deserves to be on every episode, I think.
A little bit of Shenmue discussion. It's worth it.
Right, so thanks for listening. See you in a couple of weeks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.